I watched Alex's entire world implode from the comfort of his own backyard. Sitting in one of those fancy zero-gravity lounge chairs, sipping a lemonade he'd paid someone to squeeze. And the wildest part, he'd invited me. He'd sent a car. He wanted me there to see him win. But he didn't know the ground was already crumbling under his feet, and I was the one who'd set the charges. That's not even the twist. The twist, the thing that still makes my brain tingle late at night, is that he knew. He knew all along, and he was counting on it. Let me back up. Because if you're gonna understand how I got to that lawn chair, watching my brother's name get dragged through every financial news channel on the planet, you need to know about the Lego Tower. I was 7. Alex was 9. We built this ridiculous, multicolored disaster in our basement. No plan, just bricks. It was supposed to be a castle, but it looked more like a drunk spaceship. Dad said it was the ugliest thing he'd ever seen, and he meant it as a compliment. We didn't care. We put a little flag on top made out of a toothpick and a fruit roll-up wrapper. That was ours. Nobody else. Alex looked at me all serious and said, "Nobody knocks this down but us." We shook on it, spit and all, gross, right? But that was Alex. That was always Alex. My big brother, my best friend. Fast forward 15 years. I'm 22, fresh out of college with a degree in design thinking, yep, that's a real thing, don't laugh, and Alex, he's 24. He's got this spark in his eye that I haven't seen since the Lego days. Calls me at 3 a.m. one night. Not hello, not sorry for waking you. Just, I figured it out. And I knew exactly what he meant. We'd been kicking around this idea for months, a platform that would let people turn their spare time into micro-consulting gigs. Not freelancing, not Uber for whatever. Think of it as I need someone to look over my resume for 10 minutes and you've got 10 minutes, boom. Connection made, value exchanged, no commitment. We called it Thread. I named it. Alex built the wireframes, I built the soul. Color palettes, user flow, the little animations that made you feel like you were dealing with a friend, not a transaction. It was beautiful, it was ours. And then it was. I don't know if you've ever had someone gut you with paperwork, but that's what happened. Alex filed for the LLC without me, trademarked Thread under his name only. When I brought over coffee one morning to the tiny apartment he was using as an office, he slid a document across the table like it was a lunch menu, a non-disclosure agreement, and a severance check for $5,000 for consulting services rendered. I stared at the check. The coffee steam curled up between us like a little ghost. I said, "Alex, what is this?" He wouldn't look at me. He just said, "It's what's best. This thing is gonna get big and I can't have loose ends." Loose ends. I was a loose end, his sister. I didn't cry, not in front of him. I picked up the check, folded it into a tiny square, and tucked it into my back pocket. I looked at him and his face was stone. Nothing, no guilt, no pain, just this wall. I said, "You know we had a deal, right? Nobody knocks this down but us." And he said, and I will never, ever forget this, he said, "There's no us anymore, just me." Then he went back to his laptop, typing, like I was already gone. I walked out, the door clicked shut. And something in me clicked shut too. I didn't go home, I just walked. 7 miles through the city, past coffee shops and co-working spaces and people living their lives. And somewhere around mile 4, that $5,000 check started to burn a hole in my pocket. Not because of the money, because it was a taunt, a payoff. Like I was a problem he could swipe away with enough zeros. That's when the seed got planted, not revenge. Revenge is too loud, too messy. This was something else. This was a recalibration, a long, quiet, patient game. I was gonna take back what he stole, not by fighting him, by becoming so essential that he'd hand it over without knowing. And then I'd tear it down from the inside, brick by brick, until there was nothing left but that stupid fruit roll-up wrapper. But here's the thing about plans that simmer for years. They change you. I didn't go after Alex right away. That would have been stupid. He was on guard. Instead, I vanished. Moved to another city, changed my number, scrubbed my socials. I let Mia Hendricks become a ghost. For 2 years, I worked odd jobs, barista, bookstore clerk, even a stint as a potter's apprentice. I needed to learn patience. I needed to watch people, understand how they tick. And while I was shaping clay, Alex was shaping the future. Thread launched. Exploded. TechCrunch, Forbes 30 under 30, funding rounds that went into the hundreds of millions. I'd see his face on my news feed, that same stone expression, and I'd feel a little jolt. Not anger anymore. Something colder, sharper. A scalpel, not a hammer. I started building my arsenal. Online courses in back-end development. Certificates in ethical hacking. I'm not gonna lie, that last one was a fine line. There's a whole world of gray hat forums out there where people talk about penetration testing and social engineering like they're swapping cookie recipes. I learned how to build fake profiles that could pass any background check. I learned how to clone voice signatures, how to spoof emails, how to read a person's digital exhaust trail and reconstruct their deepest insecurities. All legal, barely. But the real weapon? I learned how to listen. Really listen. The way a therapist might or a spy. By year 3, I was ready. Alex was running a team of over 200 people. He'd burned through 3 personal assistants in 18 months because he was a nightmare boss, paranoid, demanding, impossible. So I created Ellie. Ellie was warm. Ellie had a degree in hospitality management from a mid-tier university in Ohio. Ellie had a resume that would make any executive drool. 5 years managing the schedule of a notoriously difficult film producer. References that checked out because they were real people I'd cultivated. Friends of friends, people who owed me favors, one guy I'd paid in rare vinyl records to be my fake ex-boss. Ellie applied for the assistant position through a high-end staffing agency that I'd quietly compromised months earlier, and within 2 weeks, she was hired. I know what you're thinking. How do you fake an in-person interview? You don't. Everything was remote, post-pandemic flexibility. The whole hearing process was a series of video calls, and I'd spent $3,000 on a convincing silicone mask and a wig that changed my face shape. Add some vocal fry coaching, a set of blue contacts, and a slightly hunched posture from years of imaginary desk work, and I was Ellie. Alex never stood a chance. Humans see what they expect to see, and he expected to see a competent, unthreatening assistant, not his sister, not the loose end he thought he'd snipped. The first day on the job, I walked into his office, all glass and steel and ego, and my heart was a jackhammer. He glanced up from his phone, gave me a nod, and said, "Coffee, black, from the place on 5th, not the machine. They know my order. Go." No hint of recognition. I smiled, said, "Got it," and turned on my heel. The moment I was out of sight, I had to lean against a wall. My legs were shaking, not from fear, from the sheer electric thrill of it. I was inside. I was invisible. I was the breeze that was eventually gonna knock his whole house down. Over the next 8 months, I became indispensable. I wasn't just his assistant, I was his second brain. I anticipated his needs before they became needs. Calendar conflicts, solved before he saw them. Grumpy investor calls. I had a 5-minute meditation playlist and a cold brew waiting. I managed his travel, his groceries, his mother's birthday gifts. Our mother, God. I had to send flowers to my own mom from my brother's account and pretend I'd never touched her hand before. That one was rough, but I did it. I did it all, and I did it with a smile that never reached my eyes. And slowly, so slowly, Alex started to crack open. Not the way he did when we were kids, but he'd leave his door open while I organized his desk. He'd ask my opinion on slides. "Ellie, what do you think of this color scheme? Too aggressive." I'd tilt my head, channel every ounce of design instinct I'd ever had, and say, "It reads a little startup, bro. You want them to think stability. Maybe tone down the reds, bring in some navy." He'd nod, actually listen. The irony could have choked me. He was taking my advice, just like old times, only now I was wearing a fake face and he had no idea. The revenge plan had layers. I wasn't just gonna delete files or leak secrets. I wanted to engineer a collapse so thorough, so complete, that the narrative would be about his incompetence, not a saboteur. I wanted the world to think Alex Hendricks was a man who'd bought his own hype and couldn't deliver. So I started small, little misalignments. A strategic meeting shifted by 15 minutes so he walked in late and looked flustered. A garbled message to a key partner that I'd clarify later with a slightly different nuance. I'd edit his presentation notes just enough to make him stumble, synonyms that felt off, data points that were 95% correct, but that 5% would make him look sloppy under questioning. Nothing fireable, just erosion. And then I went bigger. I discovered that Alex was secretly dating the VP of marketing. A woman named Sam company policy forbade it. So I anonymously tipped off HR, from a burner phone, routed through 3 VPNs, using sentence structures that mimicked another employee I knew had a grudge. All hell broke loose. Alex wasn't fired, but the scandal cost him a bored ally. One domino. Next, I planted a rumor in the engineering Slack that the company was running out of runway. Just a whisper, Did you hear we might not make payroll next quarter? It spread like a virus. 2 top developers quit within a week. Alex looked like a Captain Bleeding crew. I was in the room when the panic attacks started. Not that he'd ever admit they were panic attacks. He'd just suddenly grip the edge of his desk, breathe hard through his nose, and stare at nothing for 30 seconds. One time I brought him a glass of water, put my hand on his shoulder, his sister's hand, through a silk blouse, and said, "Tough day." He actually leaned into it just a little, and I felt something. I pushed it down. That wasn't part of the script. The final stage was the investor coup. Alex was about to close a Series C round, $80 million, the money that would cement Thread as a unicorn. He was flying to San Francisco for a dinner with the lead partners. I was scheduled to brief him on the flight details. Instead, I leaked a dossier to a journalist I'd been cultivating for 6 months. The dossier showed Thread's user metrics had been inflated by 20%. Fake accounts. Bot traffic. It wasn't true. Thread was legit. But I'd crafted the evidence so well, so meticulously, that any forensic dive would take weeks to unravel. The article went live the morning of his dinner. By noon, the deal was off. By 2 p.m., 3 more publications picked it up. By 4 p.m., #Thread scam was trending. I was at his house, his absurd modern mansion, told to meet him there after the fallout. He texted, "Bring the crisis notes, we're gonna salvage this." I walked into his backyard with a folder full of decoy documents, and I saw him. He was already sitting in a lounge chair, staring at the koi pond. He looked peaceful. That should have been my first clue. He pointed to the chair next to him. "Sit," he said. I sat. The sun was warm. The koi were orange and gold and utterly indifferent to human drama. He didn't even look at me. He just said, "You know, I had a sister once." My blood froze. I kept my voice steady. "Really? You never mentioned." He gave a sad little snort. "Yeah, she was the best part of me, and I threw her away." The folder in my hands suddenly felt like lead. He kept talking, calm as a meditation guide. "I cut her out of the business. Gave her $5,000 and a lie. Thought I was protecting her. The investors I was courting back then. They weren't nice people. One of them, a guy named Royce, had ties to some really dark stuff. Money laundering, maybe worse. He saw Thread as the perfect vehicle. He told me if I didn't play ball, he'd go after my family. Specifically my sister. So I made a show of pushing her away, made it ugly, made sure she'd never want to come back. I figured, better she hate me and be safe than love me and be a target. The world tilted. He kept going. But I always knew she'd come back. She's too smart not to, too stubborn. I've been waiting for her to tear it all down, because the only way out of Royce's grip was if the company became toxic to him, if it crashed spectacularly in a way that couldn't be traced back to me leaking his secrets. But if I crashed it, he'd suspect. He'd retaliate. But if an outside force, say a very clever, very patient sister, took it down, then I'm just a victim of bad luck and Royce walks away and we're free. He turned to look at me then, and his eyes. They weren't the stone I remembered. They were tired, relieved, and they looked straight through the silicone, straight through the contacts, straight into the 7-year-old girl who'd waved a toothpick flag. "Hi, Mia," he said. I didn't speak. Couldn't. The whole architecture of my mind just collapsed. All that careful planning, the years of nursing a wound, the intricate sabotage, he'd been playing a longer game. A game to protect me. And I walked right into it, just the way he knew I would. The revenge I thought was mine was actually his, and it was the most loving, insane, beautiful gift anyone ever given me. I peeled off the mask, slowly. The adhesive tugged at my skin. My real face, the one he grew up with, felt raw and exposed. He didn't flinch. He just smiled, this tiny, crooked smile I remembered from 1,000 childhood afternoons. "I'm sorry," he said. "For the 5,000 for the cold, I had to sell it. You wouldn't have stayed away if you thought I still cared." I didn't know whether to laugh or sob, so I did both. Horrible, snotty, ugly crying. He got up awkwardly and put a hand on my shoulder. This time, it was his real hand on my real skin. We stayed like that, 2 idiots by a koi pond, while the financial world burned Thread to the ground. The fallout, it was epic. Alex gave a press conference the next day, took full responsibility for the inflated metrics, even though they weren't his fault, and announced he was stepping down. The narrative shifted from fraud to hubris, which was survivable. Royce, the shady investor, quietly divested when the stock tanked, muttering about incompetent management. He never looked our way again. Thread got bought by a larger company for pennies on the dollar, its technology absorbed, its name forgotten. And Alex and I, we disappeared. It's been 2 years. We live in a little coastal town now, the kind where the fog rolls in every morning and the internet is spotty. We run a tiny design studio together, actual design, the kind we loved before the world got loud. I still don't fully trust him. Maybe I never will, but I'm working on it. Every time we sketch out a logo or bicker over a font, it feels like we're rebuilding that Lego tower. Only this time, we're using better bricks. And we made a new rule. No one knocks it down, ever. Here's the thing that keeps me up some nights, though, that brain-tingling, mind-spiraling thing. I spent years thinking I was the protagonist of a revenge story, but I was actually the unwitting accomplice in a rescue mission. Alex didn't just save me from Royce. He saved me from a lifetime of bitterness. He let me have my revenge, knowing it would be the only way I'd ever let the poison out. And if that's not the most twisted, big-brained, heartbreaking act of brotherhood, I don't know what is. So, yeah, family revenge. Sometimes it's not about who wins. Sometimes it's about who is willing to lose everything just so you could get your soul back. And if you're sitting there holding a grudge against someone you used to build Lego towers with, maybe ask yourself, is the wall you're climbing actually a wall they built to keep you safe? Might be. Might also just be a wall, but you won't know until you're brave enough to stop hammering and just listen. See you next time.